Good morning. My name is Rhonda Devine, and I'm with the Office of Finance and Operations, Division of District Support. From my team, Brad Kennedy, Laura Lohman, and Josh Whitlow will be presenting. Today we will be discussing data cleanup for the 2019-20 school year. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many reporting requirements will be different. Today we will discuss NTI instructional minutes and how to change them to 420 minutes for the day if your district chooses to do so, SAAR data cleanup, at risk, virtual and performance-based courses, and calendars. NTI usually gives last year's ADA for the minutes in each day which matches the period schedule. But due to the COVID-19, this year, you can receive 7 hours or 420 minutes of instruction for each NTI day. And all changes must be made on all calendars. If you follow the path, System Admin, Calendar, and then go to the Days tab, you can click on the day, choosing N for non-traditional instruction for the event type, and replace the zeros in the duration and the instructional minutes to 420, and this will give you the 7 hours or 420 minutes for each NTI day that you change. Now, at this point, you can run the calendar summary report to calculate your minutes to see when you've reached the 1,062 instructional minutes to figure out your last day of school. The calendar report that you turn into KDE normally does not reflect this change right now. We are currently working with Infinite Campus to an enhancement for the report where you can check a box and it changes the NTI to the 7 hours. We will get the information out to you when that enhancement is ready to be released. Right now, use the calendar summary report, which is located under the KDE Reports tab in Infinite Campus. Also, in our KDE website, under Division of District Support, the Student Enrollment tab, we have the latest guidance for NTI and a frequently asked questions document that we update daily as questions come in. Next, Brad Kennedy is going to talk to you about the SAAR this year.
Good morning. This is Brad Kennedy with the Division of District Support, Student Tracking and Data Branch. I'm going to talk a little bit about some changes or potential changes to SAAR, as well as regular SAAR proceedings. 2019-2020 SAAR may be submitted this year. 2018-19 SAAR data may be used for funding purposes as well. Additional guidance will be provided as soon as it is available. With that said, data cleanup should still be completed as usual. The following is a checklist that you can use for data cleanup, whether you're submitting a 1920 SAAR or using prior year data. You'll want to go through all of these reports either way. The state enrollment overlap report, ethnicity report, missing enrollment in status, kindergarten full day or half day indicator, student schedule gaps, period schedule gaps, overlapping or missing T codes, non-resident students, non-contract students, overage, underage, suspension and expulsion, partial day students, and home hospital. So within your record 7, your aggregate days and attendance and absences, one of the first things you'll need to do is your state enrollment overlap. This will show you any students who have a more than one primary enrollment. A student can have a primary enrollment of 1 day, but anything more than 1 day has to be corrected. So work with the corresponding district, the other district that has that student enrolled, and get that corrected so that they are only in one district at a time. And you see the path there is in blue: student information, reports, and then state enrollment overlap. Your record 5 is your ethnic count. And what you'll do, you run records 2 and 3 of SAAR, and essentially your record 2 is your enrollments plus re-enrollments, and then you subtract your record 3, which is your withdrawals, and that'll give you your record 5, your ethnic count. You'll want those numbers to all add up. Record 3 is your withdrawals. You'll want to run your missing enrollment in status report, and again, the path is there in blue. This will identify any students who have an enrollment with an end date but no associated end status. You'll just want to make sure you've added an end status to that enrollment. For kindergarten attendance, you just want to be sure you've got the appropriate kindergarten code selected, whether that's full day or half day. And you can see the screenshot there from Infinite Campus showing you the proper setup. And you'll just go through system admin, calendar, and then grade levels to get that entered correctly. You also want to run your student schedule gaps. This will locate any student that has a gap in their schedule, and you'll just correct any gaps for any dates shown on this report. You do want to do this for any withdrawn students as well, since they do affect attendance reports. Also, be sure to use a placeholder in the schedule inside of the day for any virtual and performance-based courses. Within your record 7, you'll also want to run an audit overlapping T code. So this is an ad hoc report that will show you any students with overlapping transportation codes, and those will need to be corrected. You'll want to run this query for each school. You also want to run an ad hoc to find any students with a missing end date. And again, the path is there for you in blue on the screen. We've got a screenshot there from Infinite Campus showing you where you can find that ad hoc report. Go through Filter Designer, State Published, and Student Audit End Dated T-code record. This will show all students who have a T-code associated with their enrollment records, or all students should have one. You run this report to find any that have a missing one. You also want to close gaps in period schedules. You want to be sure to include passing times in the class time, so you don't, put a few minutes here and there for the students to be in the hallway. Those are all built in to the calendar, to the period, and the path again there is in blue. System admin, calendar, periods tab. You can see there's no minutes between period 1 and period 2. Record 9 will include your non-contract, overage, underage students. So for your non-resident, non-contract students, you can run an ad hoc to identify those students. And this will show you you just want to verify that these students who reside outside of the district do not have a contract between their home district. You just want to check this list for its validity. Non-resident contract students, again, the ad hoc there in blue. This will identify students who are a non-resident and do have a contract agreement. Again, just check this report for its validity. Below is the proper setup for a non-contract student. You'll go into student information, general, the attendance group tab. You can see the red box there showing the non-contract status. And here we have the proper setup for a contract student. So you go into student information, general, and enrollments, and then you can put the resident district down there where you see it circled in red. Record 9 also includes your overage and underage. So you want to identify students who are underage or overage and just check this list for validity as well. You'll run this report for all schools and all calendars. Underage students, there's two different categories. For grade 00, students are considered underage for the entire year if their 5th birthday occurs after August 1st of the reporting year. And for grade 01, first grade students, they're considered underage for the entire year if their 6th birthday occurs after August 1st of the reporting year. Your overage students, grade 14, special education students participating in an alternate assessment, and also state grade level 20, post-secondary, taking adult classes, marked state exclude, and scheduled into a calendar marked exclude. Suspension attendance, the path there in blue, behavior reports, behavior attendance audit. This will identify students who are suspended and have an invalid data. Could be because attendance data was not entered properly to match the behavior resolution, or vice versa. The behavior resolution doesn't match attendance data for a state-coded suspension. You'll want to make sure that this all matches what you were anticipating. The suspension code of SSP3, out of school suspension, requires the proper state attendance code of S. For students who are expelled, you'll go to Kentucky State Reporting, Edit Reports, Expulsion Attendance Data. This will identify any student who was expelled. State Expulsion Code, SSP2, for expulsion not receiving services, requires that a student have a standard attendance event of absent unexcused for all attendance days from the start to the end date of the behavior resolution. Your partial day students, this will identify any student with a partial day attendance group, students with an IEP whose LRE is a partial day. You want to ensure that this is set up correctly within the attendance group, and you can see the screenshot there from Infinite Campus showing you how to make sure that you've got that entered correctly. Similar for home hospital students, you can run an ad hoc, filter designer, state published. This will identify any students with a home hospital attendance group. You want to ensure that attendance is marked properly. Any student eligible for home hospital must be put in this home hospital attendance group. And that is all for me. Now Laura Lohman will give an update for at-risk.
Hello, I'm Laura Lohman. I'm with the Office of District Support, and I'm going to give just a quick update on at-risk. It will be done a little differently this year, as I'm sure you all expected. If 2018-19 SAAR data is used for the adjusted average daily attendance funding calculation, then 2018-19 data may be used for your funding calculation for at-risk. And guidance for that will be provided as soon as it's available. If your district chooses to use 2019-20 SAAR data for the adjusted average daily attendance funding calculation, then 2019-20 data must be used and must be validated. And we'll provide you with verification guidance as soon as that is available. Data cleanup should still be completed for data purposes, and data will be pulled from Infinite Campus at the end of the school year for school report card reporting purposes. That's basically it for at-risk. We'll be providing additional information as soon as we can, and if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to contact me. And then up next, we have Josh Whitlow giving an update on virtual and performance-based.
Good morning. I am Josh Whitlow with the Office of Finance and Operation and with the Division of District Support. Just a quick reminder on virtual performance base course setup. In course setup, please make sure that your type is either performance or virtual and that your checkbox for attendance is unchecked. This is to make sure your district is getting attendance credit at the end of the school year. Grading task. Final grade should be selected for one term on the term mask. You'll go into term grading task. You'll click on add. Then you'll click on grading task, select final grade. And just a reminder, for you to get attendance credit, you must select a grade in the grading task as well for it to calculate your attendance and not on the transcript. Once the grading task has been set up, you will then go to grading by task, give each student either a passing grade if they pass the course or a failing grade if they did not meet requirements. Original and amended school calendars. This year for calendars, the due date has been pushed back. Both original and amended calendars are now due by July 31st. We're asking all districts, as your board approves your original calendars, to go ahead and submit those to us here at KDE. All calendars must be submitted through the KDE web application, and that link has been provided to you as well. If you need help accessing the web application, please contact your WAPOC in the open house, and that link has been provided as well. 2021 original calendars can now be submitted to us here at KDE, and our field staff will start going through those, and if they have any errors, they'll be contacting you as well. 1920 amended calendars can be submitted after May 15th, but after the last day of the school term. Some common errors we see here at the department. Gaps in school months, so please make sure that you check your school months to make sure there's no gaps in between of your months. There must be 20 days in each school month, excluding the 10th month, and that can be less days. Days in the calendar cannot have more than one day events. So make sure you run your reports on those, and just a reminder to run all your edit reports before submitting those to the department. Hours. Each calendar must consist of a minimum of 1,062 instructional hours, and original calendars must have a minimum of 170 instructional days. Original calendars should include makeup days equal to the maximum number of weather days missed in the 2014-15 school year and the 28-19 school year. And then unused makeup days should be removed before submitting your amended calendar to the department. Here's a list of our district support with names and numbers and emails. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. And then also we have our KDE field staff that will be glad to help you as well. And then if you have any questions, we ask that you enter those into the soapbox. And Becky, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, I'll take back control of the slide presentation, but we do have some questions for you guys to answer in Go Soapbox. Quite a few questions popped up about the slide that says they may not submit SAAR 1920, but then Brad went on to say that they could submit one. So Brad, could you clarify that a little bit, the difference between whether they're using 1819 SAAR data or submitting 1920?
So Rhonda, you can feel free to chime in here as well. I think the department is still investigating what's going to be the best route for districts. I think
Well,
go ahead, Rhonda.
The Senate Bill 177 gave the choice between using 1819 or 1920. We are, so you have the option, and we're going to talk on Tuesday about maybe the pros and cons of using 1819 or 1920 data. but at this point you can use for your SAAR either year.
Rhonda, I'll just add that Jessica Carlton in OFO has provided a response to this question in Soapbox Now. And her response is this: this year, given the increased NTI days and the impact they will have on SEEK funding data, including your transportation data, KDE recommends districts use the 18-19 SAAR data for the 19-20 school year. If your district chooses to use 18-19 data, you will not need to submit anything. If you choose to use 19-20 SAAR data, it will be processed differently, and KDE will provide guidance on how to submit that data. Superintendents and DPPs will receive more information next Tuesday, April the 28th, in a superintendent's webcast. So hopefully that will clear up those questions. Let's see. If districts use the 7-hour NTI days, won't some calendars not have a 10th school month? I'm not sure if anyone has tested that yet. Josh, have you seen any of that in your testing?
I have not seen that in my testing yet. I will make a note and we will work on that, try to get an answer today.
Okay. I think this means, who do we contact if all the dates match up for behavior and resolution, but the student is on the report?
I'm not sure, but we can find out and get that information back.
Okay, so just reach out to someone on Rhonda's team and they can help get you the answer for that.
They can email me directly and I will find out and get that question answered.
Okay. We have a district that says they are having trouble with the schedule gap generating for the 3 high schools in Kenton County. Are there other districts having the issue? So that sounds like maybe it's an issue with performance in that district.
We haven't had any other questions coming in for that, so it may be something that they need help with. If they could email Josh Whitlow directly, he can look into that for them.
Okay. If a non-resident, non-contract student moves into the district, do we remove the resident district from the enrollment tab?
They're moving into the district, then yes, then they would be a resident. So yes. Am I hearing that correctly? So if they're enrolling, then they're a resident in that district. So that would be
if it happens. I'm not sure if the question pertains to a mid-year move. Would it still be, if you do it on the enrollment, on the existing enrollment, that's going to make it look like they were never a non-resident for that year? Is there a reason for tracking that they were non-resident for part of the year?
Not that I'm aware of. Josh, do you have any other information on that?
I don't, not right now. I don't. I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
Just
we may need to do some research on that one, and we'll get an answer in our Q&A document later. How will the home hospital add-on be? And it looks like a reply has been added. If your district uses the 18-19 SAAR data, the district will receive the same home hospital add-on that was received in 18-19. If you process the 19-20 SAAR, the home hospital will be calculated from the 19-20 data. Regarding amended calendars, our district's last day is May the 8th. Just clarifying, the rest of the days for the 187 calendar will need to be indicated as teacher equivalency days. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that
Yes,
is correct.
that's right.
And back to your other question, Becky, on the 10th month.
Uh-huh.
That will finish out the 10th month because they'll have to submit their 185. They'll still have to have 185 days on the calendar.
So they will fill those in with teacher equivalency, and that should carry them into the 10th month.
Correct.
Okay. Can virtual and performance-based course use the grading task of semester grade instead of final grade grading task?
No.
No,
They
it will still have to have a final grade because that's what the SAAR looks at as final grading.
Okay. Does the 420-minute NTI days affect the 185 teacher contract days as well?
That's part of the what we said in the last part with the 185 teacher contract days. Once your students have met the requirements of 1062, you will then mark the rest of the days. Either it's in the calendar as E, teacher equivalency, or you can use G, planning.
Okay. Trying to make sure we've answered all these questions. I think that covers it. Most of them have been about the calendar.
And they can also reach out and send us an email directly, and we can help them as well.
We did just have a question come in. Can planning day be used instead of teacher equivalency?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions? Looks like they have slowed down. I'm just trying to scroll back through and make sure I haven't missed any. They were coming in pretty quickly there for a few minutes.
We did have one about the graduation or the diploma date for graduation. We may have to do a little research on that to get an answer on that one.
Yeah, I have somebody checking on that,
Okay.
but typically it's not based on when you're, if I'm understanding the question right, it's not based on when you're holding the graduation ceremony. I believe if the student has met all the requirements for graduation as of the last day of school, that you would put that last instructional day in there as their diploma date, because that's when they've met the requirements. It's not really about the ceremony, but I am getting someone to confirm that, so we'll get back to you on that.
For those of you that have asked questions and you've not used Go Soapbox before, if you click on your question, there are a lot of answers. Becky's referred to it, but I'll make sure you knew what she was referring to. If you click on your question, it'll open up another box that'll show the replies to it. There are responses in there, and we're continuing to add those as we can to the ones that have already been responded to.
Okay, we do still have a little bit more time. I think we're scheduled up to 10:15 for the break. Were there any other questions from the KDE update earlier this morning? I know Dee Dee had to kind of speed up on those last few slides. Any questions about those last few slides or anything that she covered, or any other questions from OFO's session?
Nobody's asked the question, but Becky, I'll just fill in a little bit and then we'll just take an
Okay.
extended break. On that new pandemic EBT program that's going to be introduced, I mentioned a little bit about sharing SSIDs out with parents, so they would have the student ID to apply for the program. Again, this is only students that aren't, or parents that aren't already receiving Health or Family Services benefits, and it's only for students that are receiving free and reduced lunch, but that could be a whole school if you're a CEP school, because income eligibility is not a requirement. So thinking along those lines, you know, as we've been brainstorming about this, I mentioned if you turn it on in the portal, you'll actually see the student ID information on the Today page. And so they would have that. But parents aren't going to absolutely know that from just the fact that we turn it on. So thinking about the communication piece of letting them know, you know, if a good percentage of your students and parents do have a portal application, a portal notification might work. If you have if you're using Campus Messenger or some other messaging system, sending out a little information about the program along with, you know, your state ID or local ID, if it's the same, out to parents is a way to communicate that. You know, I've talked to some districts that have a call center that they might, you know, utilize their call center. If you don't have a call center, I think it's going to be very important to think through who's going to be in the school to be able to answer these questions as they come in, and making sure that they have the information they need. There are reports that will pull all the SSIDs. So giving a list of somebody's names with SSIDs would probably all they would need to be able to respond with the SSIDs that were needed for the application. But this program, you know, is still in the application set, and with schools closing as early as the first week of May, I'm starting to be a little bit concerned. And again, this is not a KDE program. We're partnering with CHFS and trying to support this for families. But we may have schools closed before we have, or at least students no longer in school before this program actually rolls out. So really think about it. If you've got ideas and you're like, oh, this is no big deal, Dee Dee, why are you bringing it up? You know, put some additional information in the chat, just in Soapbox, so that we can continue to add on to our options of how this can be done. Again, superintendents will get more information about this afternoon. It probably needs to be a group of people that sit down and talk about what would work best for your school. You know, every local district's going to be a little bit different, and even within a district, you've got some schools that are on a you know, free reduced paid situation. Other schools within the same district might be a CEP school where everybody eats free. So it does make a difference. The other piece that we haven't brought up before, but you've got families that weren't getting free lunch and may not have ever submitted the paperwork, but now they're eligible. They've lost jobs. They've in situations that they didn't expect to be. They may apply for submit a free lunch application very late in the year, but we want to accommodate those also. This program doesn't do anything to, take the place of the food programs at your school or the summer food programs that already exist. This is actually a supplement on top of that. So, I was confused on that initially, so I always bring that up, that it's completely separate. It's an additional, I think it's $5.60 a day that families could get per student. So, if you've got a large family and you think about that for a month, and the money there's actually a 3-month period where there's some partial eligibility on that. So it can really help some families out there. So we want to do what we can and really listen to you all. If you all have any suggestions on things that might make sense to do on this to help families not get frustrated. And we really don't want any system issues like the unemployment system where families can't get the benefits they need. I know they've had such high demand I think there's some things that we can do on the front end that maybe makes it easier for families and eliminates, that type of frustration. So just want to give a little bit more in that while we've got some time.
Dee Dee,
yes.
can you expand on the CEP districts? The question is, are you saying that all students in a CEP district will qualify for this assistant? It's not any kind of income-based program in a CEP district.
That's correct. That's what we expect. So it's anybody that has a free meal plan, regardless if it's income eligible or not. If they're eating for free at school, they're eligible for the program.
Okay, we've had a couple additional questions come in for Rhonda's team. Can Memorial Day, May 25th, be used as a planning or teacher equivalency day?
Is that
Yes,
one of their 4 holidays that they've chosen originally? As long as they have the 4 holidays, I think they can use it.
Okay, regarding closing day, can they put closing day the day after the last day for students and then teacher equivalency to finish out the days? Or does closing day have to be the very last day?
It should be the very last day. Is that, I believe that's correct. Josh, it's got to be the last.
It can be the last day. It doesn't really matter in there on those days at the end of the school year, but we always recommend that it goes on the last day.
Okay, a couple of districts have asked, in what scenario might a district use the 1920 SAAR data versus 1819 data? Or should we wait until the superintendent's webcast next week for more information on this topic? And a reply to that has been added. The superintendent's webcast will outline the reasons that you might want to use the 1819 data and what districts will have to do if they want to process the 1920 data instead. It will be one of the main topics of the webcast.
And remember, transportation is tied to your SAAR. So on days where we had the NTI, it's non-transport. So that's one of the things that we're going to be discussing. But Tuesday we'll have the full report on really the different ways that it's going to affect funding for 1819, just using those numbers as opposed to 1920. So there are more things tied to it than just attendance, and I think that's what they're going to really look more in detail about.
Okay. We had a question come up about the pros and cons of the pass-fail grading, where that information could be located that was mentioned in the first session this morning. The hyperlink that's on that slide takes you to a course in Infinite Campus University, and attached to that course is a PowerPoint presentation that has about 6 slides of questions of things that your district should consider, from scholarships, GPAs, all types of things that you would need to consider in your district, questions you would want answered before you would ever start making any kind of changes in Infinite Campus to change your grading system. What is the path in IC we can go through to see if parents can see the student SSID in the portal? And that is in, trying to do this from memory, system administration. I believe it's in preferences and portal preferences. There's a preference to set to see the student number.
Again, that works only for those districts that are using the local and the state ID. So you'll be able to see that in the preferences but also you'll need to consider that if you're one of those schools that are not using the state ID, it might make more sense to turn that off so there's not confusion. Up to you, but just something that we've thought of.
I'm just looking back over the questions. The list has gotten really long, so I want to make sure I haven't missed anything. I don't think that we read this one online. Are there plans in place for alternative testing cities if we don't have school next year, such as home testing online? And the response was, that's a really good question. And the Office of Assessment and Accountability will continue to update district assessment coordinators as options become available. And we'll share this question with that team. Okay, here's one that's come in about FRAM. I thought FRAM data of free was entered for students that transferred from a CEP. Is this correct?
Can you repeat that?
FRAM data of free entered for students that transfer from a CEP district. Is this correct? So if they were going to school in a district that is a CEP district, so the student is receiving a free lunch, if they transfer to another school district, I think the question is, would they be free in that new district?
They would have to enter like a household income form to determine that.
Okay. We have a district that says our board approved the closing day as the day after the students are done and then planning days after. Do I need my board to amend the calendar or are we good as is?
You are good as is. That's fine. If they've already approved it, there's no need in going back and getting it approved again.
Okay. And just a quick correction on the path that I gave you for the portal preferences. It's just system administration portal and then preferences. I think I said system administration preferences and then portal preferences. So I said that a little bit backwards. System administration, portal, and then preferences.